Welcome again to New Game Plus. You're listening to a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game, and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name's Kenny.
I'm Nolan.
And this is episode 76.
76, the big 7-6.
Viewers, do you want to know how bad we are with modern gaming? Like how up to date or out of date that the three of us are with modern gaming? Let's do this. Kenny, Nolan, how are you liking the new Nintendo Switch?
I've heard good things about Breath of the Wild. I want to play it someday. Of course, I don't have one.
Yep, and that also wasn't my question. How are you liking the new Nintendo Switch?
Let's be real. The only thing people play on the Nintendo Switch is Breath of the Wild. That's pretty much what
right
you
now,
asked,
I guess.
Is
Maybe.
did
Nolan,
you
you
spend hundreds of dollars for Zelda?
I'm not enjoying
Nolan?
it because I don't have it.
Yeah,
because I don't have money. I want it really bad.
So my second question that Kenny can't answer is, what about Zelda Breath of the Wild? Because it's not only on Nintendo Switch. You enjoying that one?
Oh, I do have a Wii U. I don't have the game because it's $60.
See, that one breaks my heart. If I had a Wii U, I would buy the game for sure.
No, see, here's my thing. I want to play it on the Switch. I'm waiting, and there's been spoilers everywhere. People have been freaking out, and it's hurting me very badly to hear how good this game actually is. But I'm waiting. I'm getting the Switch.
Well, your birthday is right around the corner. Maybe you're gonna get one.
Probably not.
All right. What about For Honor or the new Mass Effect game?
What's
you guys
For
playing?
Honor?
Yeah, it's a big popular game right now.
Okay.
One of the number one things on Switch.
Here's how this game works. Okay, Dustin, have you been playing Horizon Zero Dawn?
I have not. No. No.
See, and now you feel terrible, right?
I do, yeah, but I'm with you in all of these. I haven't been playing any of this. I don't have any of this.
I was just making sure you weren't just
think-
bringing
No,
Nolan and I
always-
down so that this episode was going to be a bummer.
We're always
Right,
2 years behind. We're still on Rocket League.
So what's our problem? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, why?
Okay. I don't know.
Maybe it's because we have like retro games in our blood, and so you balance like the desire for old games with the desire for new games and average them out, and we get stuck like years ago.
I'll tell you what it is for me. It honestly is money. The games I currently play are all free to play. I just realized that, and I think that's for a reason. I just can't throw $60 at a new game. I have to wait on Steam to put it on sale. I can't spend the same amount of money as I used to.
Basically, if there's any sugar mamas or sugar daddies out there,
Yeah.
well,
Sugar daddies, please.
we're looking for you. No, I agree that it's money, it's time. Basically, it's money. Like
It's both of those things.
Pretty much, no matter how good the game is, to get me to spend $60-$70 on a game
That's rough.
is rough.
Yeah.
It totally changes the perspective of when you were like young and asking for a new video game.
Yeah. And your parents were like,
a
no.
computer game that just came out, and you're like, it's totally worth it. That's not that much money.
Right.
Come on, Mom. Come on.
To be fair, games weren't they like $40 or $50 back then?
No, they were actually
Well, yeah,
60.
but that's like
They were
a
expensive.
decade ago. Even then, like $45 or $50 versus a $60 game today. That's pretty
True.
much the same hit on your wallet.
True.
They were always pricey.
I mean, true gamers, that doesn't hinder them. They go get it. So I don't think we're true gamers.
That's right. Well, maybe one day we will be able to dig ourselves out of this predicament because we sure haven't dug ourselves out yet.
there it is.
Our retro game of the week is the classic Dig Dug. Welcome to New Game Plus.
It wasn't
Wow.
even try that one.
I don't even like. I've got no words for how
Let's
bad
just
that was.
continue. We don't always have to just wait and talk about that. There's always
No.
going to be a segue. The beginning doesn't have to necessarily do with the rest. We just got to have a natural bridge, and that was as natural as we could get.
I guess. So Dig Dug is an old arcade game, early 80s. In fact, released in 1982.
So when you were born.
So this game is thankfully I'm not quite that old,
He
but
was in middle school.
near then. Yeah, when I graduated high school, looked great for my age. Was originally an arcade game and has since been ported to everything. It's one of those games that started and became classic, and then was an easy enough game to just move to other things, and so it did. And in Dig Dug, you are Dig Dug. His actual name is a little bit up for debate, but is generally referred to as Dig Dug. And you're a character, little sprite in white, who runs around underground, somehow digging tunnels. And there are monsters in these tunnels, some dragons that are, kind of scary looking, and then some tomato looking things. I believe they have names. What is it? Pookas and Figars?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Somebody was, I don't know.
Those are great
when
names.
they came up with these names or something. They're ridiculous is what they are. And you run around basically kind of live action puzzle, not live action, real time, almost like a Pac-Man vibe, but plays differently.
And
you
also
run around
no
trying
puzzle.
to avoid these enemies as they move through the dirt as well, and you can handle the enemies in the only way that makes sense by shooting them with an air hose that like pumps them full of air until they explode.
Yeah,
You can pump them full of a little bit of air to just sort of stun them and walk away or walk past them and keep moving on your way, or you can pump them so full of air that their bodies explode and on you go in your digging adventure.
Yeah, I always thought it was a bike pump, like a bike tire pump back in the day, which is not far off.
No, in the fan art,
off.
it totally looks like that. It looks like the little TNT plunger.
Right. And for those of you that might be a little bit younger and aren't too familiar with Dig Dug, a Pooka, and a Figar can all be seen in the recent Disney movie Wreck-It Ralph. So make sure to be on the lookout for those guys.
I didn't see that.
I think we could have the same conversation we had about video games with movies, probably.
Yeah.
Although it may not be quite as bad, but I never saw Wreck-It Ralph. Also, I don't have children, so...
Yeah. Last movie I saw was the one with the blue aliens.
For real?
Avatar?
Yeah.
You're not real.
Like 10 years ago.
All right, so listen.
Not real life.
I didn't play Dig Dug in the arcade. I feel like that would have been a lot of fun. I played it on Game Boy. What did you guys play it on, or did you even play it as you were younger?
Oh, as we were younger. I thought you meant this week. It was
nope.
Of course we played it. No, I never played it before this week. Hadn't touched it.
At all?
Really?
No, I didn't even know it existed. When you said Dig Dug, I was like, what game? Huh?
Are you serious?
Yeah, this may be classic, but it's not classic. This is no Tetris or Mario or Galaga or any number of things that you're actually allowed to scoff at me not being familiar with.
It's pretty well known.
I think I read that it was the number 8 most grossing in arcade video games.
Yeah, in 1982, I didn't exist yet.
But
by the time I was doing video games, you were shooting things with guns and playing Mortal Kombat, and
Anyways,
Ninja
I played
Turtles
it
and stuff.
I played it on arcade, a really old one. Yeah, it was super old.
I'm scared now that all of the people that are listening to this podcast that are retro people are going to be very offended that Kenny didn't even know what Dig Dug was.
Oh, we're clearly not the most knowledgeable video gamers in the world.
Yeah, that's
no one
fine.
has ever argued otherwise.
This is not for education. This is hopefully for some kind of entertainment.
Maybe it's for our education.
Yeah,
Kenny's learning.
Absolutely.
All right, so there used to be this thing called Atari.
Yeah.
No, all right. So yes,
I've played with an Atari. That one I can claim at least.
So
quite a bit.
So this is Dig Dug. Now that we've kind of given an overview of what this game is and Kenny has found out about it, let's actually go into the gameplay section. So Dig Dug is a very, very simple action game where, as Kenny mentioned, you're not just walking underground, you're digging through the earth and in an attempt to take down 2 different types of monsters. That's what you're trying to do. So unlike Pac-Man, you're not trying to collect anything. There's no collectibles, there's no power-ups.
There's collectibles for points, but not for interactivity.
There's a single collectible in the shape of different vegetables or different little items. So if you So there are two ways to kill your two enemies, which, by the way, a Pooka is a tomato with goggles and a Fygar is a dragon that breathes fire. And you can eliminate them in one of two ways: through the air pump or by leading them under a rock that you remove the earth out from under it, and the rock then wiggles and falls down, hopefully on one of the enemies.
Yes.
Which, if you're playing the game for, I don't know what other purpose you'd play it for, because it's one of those games that, yes, gets more difficult and surviving has merit, but being an arcade game and being fairly simple and repetitive, it really is a points-driven kind of game. Like
100%.
Pac-Man or,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
any
a
of the
high
other, like,
score-
classic arcade. Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to get to the top of that list. And the way you maximize points is by using those rocks really well, by dropping them so that they hit enemies, and ideally multiple enemies in the same fall. And so there's a little bit of strategy in terms of hurting the enemies around and what routes you take and how the enemies are going to react and learning their AI, and then using your rocks really well.
And the last enemy flees, so like if you want those
you
points,
don't get those points,
you
right.
gotta go
Right.
chase it down or make get to it easily before it can get to the top and leave.
But surprisingly, it's not time-based whatsoever. It's simply how and if you take out these few enemies. And if I recall, is it the same amount of enemies on every stage and just their AI changes? No, I think they add a little bit, but it's not like some of these other arcade games where they just add more enemies and even more complex enemies. There's only 2 enemies, and the number of them might change slightly, but it's more so you just taking them out in creative ways.
And they move faster, I think, as you progress. But other than that, it is very straightforward. Sometimes I would be like, "Wait, I just did this level."
Right. But let's talk about progression, because although the game is super simple, it gets increasingly difficult and fairly fast. It ramps up. So, what did you think of the difficulty progression
I thought it was pretty hard from the beginning.
from the get-go?
Yeah, and you get used to it though. Like you kind of have to plan your route. I mean, you fail a couple times and then you're like, okay, I'll take out this enemy, this one. But it does ramp up fairly quickly. Like before you get to level 10, it's like, this is very difficult.
And I think you should expect that out of arcade games.
Yeah, sure.
They literally made their money based on people not being able to play indefinitely.
Yeah.
You know, like if your game was easy enough that people could like pop in one quarter and then play for an hour straight, you're probably operating at a loss, literally. I'm sure there's a, time investment versus whatever kind of factor that went into designing games of that era. And so it absolutely ramps, but that's not a big surprise for me. And I think the fact that it's relatively easy to understand, but then that the difficulty does go up quickly is a nice challenge for the kind of game that it is.
Yeah, and we do need to add that you don't have life. You get killed in one hit.
Yeah.
It's not like you can take some damage. The rocks can even fall on you.
Yes, they can.
And so there are a few ways to die, and you die very, very easily. And
only 3 lives.
So, you got 3 lives.
Unless
no
you
continues.
No continues. You get an extra life at 10,000 score
each time.
Each time
you get 10,000.
So it's pretty unforgiving as far as that goes.
Yeah. This is not a good game for those viewers that struggle with anxiety. It's because, especially as you progress in stages, because even the music speeds up when there are less enemies.
Yeah.
So within a particular level, it gets more and more intense, and they come after you. So they don't have to they have their own carved out paths within the earth, but then they can turn into these ghost creatures that can move across the dirt where you can't yet, and come towards you. And so with the progression in levels, their AI increases, their tactics increases until they're just trying to gang up on you each and every stage. And like you said, Nolan, it ramps up pretty quickly.
That ghost thing where they can move across the stage really reminded me of Pac-Man, kind of, because like when you get the pills and the ghosts go back to the middle or whatever. I don't know.
There's definitely a reason that Pac-Man comes to mind. It's very different games, but lots of similar vibe.
Yeah. And also, the music only plays when you move. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that, but I also... I also noticed that I think I noticed that the music continues even with other sound effects, which is pretty impressive for back during this time.
What do you mean?
Like, usually, I think that these early arcade games could only do one sound effect or one music thing at a time. In fact, most of them don't even have some background music. Pac-Man doesn't. It's just that and this one actually had a musical score that was played throughout, which that's very impressive for 1982.
Sure. Yeah. It added that extra layer. It added that extra layer of stress when you move and the music plays. I don't know. It just bothered me a little bit.
Yeah. So, how far did you guys get? I don't want to embarrass any of us. We already we already do that enough. But how quickly were you feeling it being a punishing game? Because I feel like you're going to die pretty early the first time through, and then you're going to kind of get the mechanics. There's not much to it, but you're going to get like the flow of the game and kind of what are some good tactics, and then you'll get a little bit further. How was it for you to figure out or for you to start feeling, man, this is a tough stage, or this progression is really intense?
So
here's the deal. I'm bad at video games.
Just in general?
So it didn't take me very long at all to be like, what? I have fingers? They're clumsy? It definitely took a little while to kind of get that vibe going. But once you did, like, until the difficulty kind of really ramped, it seemed bearable. I don't know.
I felt it every stage. And if I died, I would be like, man, like, that puts you behind. If you die early, I would just die the rest of my life so I could start over with 3 lives. Because, like, the farther you get and you have, like, 1 life left and you're introduced to a new stage that you're not familiar with and you don't know the enemy patterns, it really makes it hard. So, like, the fact that there's no continues, I felt it every stage. And I only got to, like, the 10th stage.
As with lots of games, especially older games, but doubly especially arcade games, having played it enough to get familiar with how the enemies react, with what routes you can take, with what works, with what doesn't, with exactly how your timing on hitting the enemies and how long you need to stun them, and, you know, ways to pull them to the rocks and whatever else, it ramps up a ton with knowledge. It's one of those games that when you're playing blind or playing for the first time, it's significantly more difficult than someone who's put the time in and invested the quarters, you know, to really go after that high score.
See, I died early, and I had played it before as a kid, and then I played it again this last week. I died early, but then after that, I got to stage 3 or 5, and then after that, I was able to get a little bit further. Each time, I was able to improve because I knew how to maneuver. I knew what to do and what not to do. I knew how long it took. One of the frustrations was that, and I don't know if this ever happened to you, but sometimes in maybe stages 3 and on, some of your minions, some of the enemies, there would be 2 of them
on top of each
other, and you can't see because they've got the same path, the same route. And so if I go to them first and try to pump one up, then the other one just keeps walking towards me and kills me.
I feel like that's why the rock mechanic is in there. I just didn't. I don't have enough skill though to route them under one because I think they're a little faster than you are.
Oh no, they are.
So yeah. Well, also especially if you get, you know, later in the game. But yeah, that was difficult. Another frustration of mine was that the Figars can breathe fire through a thin layer of dirt.
Yeah, I've realized that.
That happened way too much to me. No. But
fire
you can.
Breathing is no good.
What?
Fire breathing is no good.
No, it's never
good. There's a
good.
mechanic in any game that has fire breathing, I'm going to die to it.
Yeah.
Unless you are doing it. Then it's good. You're going to set yourself on fire?
Another thing that I learned that did help with that is that the hitbox on your little pump kind of goes into the ground a little bit. So they don't actually have to be fully in the lane that you are. Happened a couple times on accident. If I was good, I would make it happen on purpose. But yeah.
And you can start pumping them up even as ghosts. So like you don't have to wait until they rematerialize. Yeah. You can start that process early. So all that to say, the gameplay of this game, the mechanic is super simple. Like there's not much to it. You will after one full death, you will figure out kind of what to do, and then it's just a matter of doing it over and over and over again. Nothing changes except the difficulty and the AI ability. The music stays the same. Some of the color palettes change every 5 levels, I think, but that's the only thing that's going to change. So once you get the basics, it's just a matter of playing over and over and over again and trying to get that high score.
Right. If you haven't been familiar with the game or seen somebody else play it, discovering how the rocks work is definitely a little bit of a like, oh, hey, that's neat. But besides that, you're not learning anything, you know?
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move on into Aged.
It's always difficult for me to talk about how an arcade game has aged, because they're so like iconically old that they're almost fulfilling like what they're supposed to be. You know, the appeal isn't like, is this the most immersive gaming experience relative to 2017 by any means. The appeal is, you know, could I sit down and waste some quarters and play this game and have fun and enjoy it? Is it, you know, is there appeal there? Yeah. Would I want to spend 10 minutes at an arcade giving up the option to be playing other arcade games to play this one? And so I think the like way we judge them has to be different. But
hold on. I think in part, like, but the whole thing of our section on how this game is aged is now bringing it outside of an arcade. Is it still something that you would enjoy playing, or that you would encourage other people to play?
Sure.
Which I like, because I think I would have a lot of fun playing this in an arcade. I think this would be a fun game to just, because you're trying to get a high score in an arcade. You're not trying to do a long-term commitment in an arcade, but taking this game outside of the arcade, I think that's the question we look at when it comes to agedness, because we can't find an arcade as easily this week, and we can't. And if we do find an arcade, it's going to be a difficult time finding Dig Dug.
Right.
So I think it comes down to that. Like if I had a joystick and then the 1 or 2 buttons, that would be a lot of fun. But playing this week, there's age there. Like the music and the sound effects, all those are pretty good. The graphics for what it is are decent. The controls, though, they don't seem very responsive. I always had some kind of lag in input and some lag when I was underground digging. I think they could have done easy tweaks to make this game better at the beginning, even with their limited resources. I think they could have added a couple more enemies, or 2 enemies seems very lazy. And I guess Pac-Man has
pretty
one.
Limited on what you can do in 1982.
That's fair.
On your hardware, you really are. And so I agree. Like more is better, but I have no idea how much, you know, more difficult it would have been to add additional enemies and sprites and everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Doug this week, and he said it could have been done, but
I dig it. It's a good joke.
I agree with both of you. Not about the jokes.
With our jokes?
No.
Oh.
And I kind of lean towards what Kenny was saying. Like, it's hard for me to talk about arcade games when we do them, because I really do think the true experience in the game lies in actually being in front of them. But at the same time, we can't just do that. So today, arcade, the genre, like all games that are arcade games, are just harder. They're not as easy to access. And so, but I don't think that should make me not give the game credit where credit's due. I think if I played this on a cabinet, yeah, I would have a lot of fun. And I do think the simplicity of the game just does well for its age. Like, there's not some stupid mechanic that at the time they thought was really good and now it's like annoying. It's just really simply a movement game and a little layer of strategy in how you move. And I think it works well still. I had fun playing it this week at least, and that's a big factor for me when I play these games.
I gotta say, I think a remake of this game for a cell phone that you were controlling based on motion of the phone, where your character was using gravity to move through dirt, and then rocks would fall based on whatever way you were tilting, so that it was completely hands-free. You were just tilting and moving and avoiding obstacles, and then maybe tapping the screen to use your little deal. Could be interesting. It would totally change the gameplay.
Mobile games
just
are lame.
Trying to redeem it in my mind and make it feel like it could be accessible today. That's the only thing that came to mind.
I think I actually have that in my notes too. That it would be fun to have a mobile version. I don't know because I think it really
Dustin,
lends itself.
I definitely can't hear you. I know you may have to edit this out. You may have gotten muted or hardware muted or Skype is messing up. So,
can you hear me, Nolan? Okay, Nolan can hear me, so it's.
Technical difficulties.
Apologize to our viewers. Was that me losing your audio?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Skype is a terrible program.
It is. I too had in my show notes that it would be cool to have a mobile version of Dig Dug. I think it really lends itself to that. And the simplicity of it. I don't know about the motion aspect of it, although that sounds interesting, but I think it could very easily be made into a mobile game. That being said, there were a few sequels to Dig Dug, so if you like this first one, or if you like kind of what we're talking about, maybe you could try these newer ones. So Dig Dug 2, Trouble in Paradise, and I think that was just a few years after Dig Dug. Didn't do as well.
That title.
And then more recently, Dig Dug Digging Strike, which was released on the Nintendo DS in 2005. So that's pretty recent.
That is.
That's fairly recent.
I was unaware of that one. I think I've played one of those ports, not the newer ones, but one of the like quote-unquote sequels or remakes. But to me, the arcade one just kind of like is what stuck with me as far as when I think of Dig Dug. It's just so classic. Oh yeah, but if you can't get enough of that Dig Dug gaming, then you can always find new ones, and there might even be a mobile version. In 2005, Namco Networks released a version of Dig Dug for cell phones and Palm OS Windows mobile devices.
If this was 2005, this was like pre-smartphone era cell phone game, like as if it played like Snake. You know.
So we need to do another one, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, we'll make that a Patreon level thing. That if they give enough, we'll put forth the effort to create a Dig Dug for mobile devices.
Except we will never ever do that.
That would have to be a really, really high Patreon level.
All right, so now we come to the question: do you dig it? Do you give this game your vote for New Game Plus status, which simply means is this a game that we would encourage our viewers to find a copy of and play because they would enjoy it, find some kind of value or merit in it, or to set it to the side and possibly play last week's game instead? Let's just start with me. I do think that Dig Dug is one of the most simplistic games that we played, save for maybe Space Invaders. That was very basic as well.
Yeah, I think even more so, but barely.
Okay. There's not much to it at all with some of these early games. And picking it up for the first time, you'll die early at least a few times, but then you'll get a hang of it fairly quickly. It will still be difficult. So, yeah, I don't think you'll see round 10 for a while. And if you do, I think that's pretty good. I think there will be a certain audience that finds it fun and charming, but I believe that there will be more of an audience that will grow bored with it quickly, and that was the camp that I found myself in. So that's why I do not give it my vote for New Game Plus.
Yeah, you mentioned that idea of I wonder if people were actually playing last week's game instead, and I had at least one moment where I sat down to play some Dig Dug and opened up the New Game Plus Discord channel and noticed at least one of our consistent viewers, Antonin, who had Final Fantasy VII open and playing it. And I was like, well, I can't blame you, bro.
No,
I was different games.
I was still in a lot of Final Fantasy VII this week, so I don't blame anyone for that. Nolan, what do you think about Dig Dug?
I give it New Game Plus. I thought it was fun, and you can play it for free anywhere. Another thing that we haven't talked about, like arcade cabinets artwork was a huge a huge thing that went into like the experience of it. Like arcade cabinets are a work of art. I love them. And Dig Dug, they tried and put a lot of effort into like the marketing of it and like the style of it. It has a lot of character, and it's a very Japanese style art. I love it. That's not the game, but for me, it just makes it cool. And I liked the gameplay. I thought it was fun and very simple, which is a positive for the game. So I think people should play it. And I think it's larger than what Kenny was saying. I think it's a pretty big deal. Even if you haven't played it before, I think that it didn't like revolutionize gaming or, you know, arcade games or anything, but it was a little different. You know, it was novel, and I don't know. I think it's fun. So yes.
So I give it a yes. Nolan gives it a no. To either receive New Game Plus status or to not give it, it requires the majority vote, which means that Kenny, the power is in your hands once again.
I think you said that backwards, because you gave it a no, Nolan gave it a yes, right? Or am I really confused?
That's right. And if I said it backwards, then I'll
so
just
be
reverse
it. But it still comes down to me. Here's the deal. I totally get Nolan's point. Like a classic arcade that is simple and fun and replayable ought to be something that is appealing to people on some level. I also get that it's an old game that shows its age a little bit. It's a little bit repetitive. I almost want to give the game New Game Plus just because of not the gameplay, which would be totally the wrong reason to give it, but because in the Japanese version of the game, the way they named their character is an incredibly witty pun, and I'm a sucker for a good pun. But
wait, what is it?
I'm just quoting some Wikipedia to you guys because that's where I learn everything, at least first. When he's not considered Dig Dug, which is his official name, he's given the name Taizo Hori, which would be said in Japanese Hori Taizo. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. And then the Japanese phrase Horitai Zo means I want to dig.
I don't know about incredibly witty pun,
no, it's
wonderful.
Well, we don't speak Japanese. Like, it's not going to translate perfectly, but the idea that they like did that play on words is so fun to me.
Yep.
Anyways,
so because of
that makes me smile, but that is not enough to redeem this experience as a game. I think there are some old classic arcades games that need to be must plays, but this isn't a Miss Pac-Man. This isn't Tetris. This isn't Galaga. Sure, classic, kind of novel. Probably worth knowing about so that you don't look like a fool when you're on a retro gaming podcast like I did this week, but actually playing it and it being worth your time for game's sake, it doesn't do quite enough for me. So I'm going to say no New Game Plus.
All right. Dig Dug does not receive our vote for New Game Plus status. Maybe it does for you. Let us know online on social media. Shoot an email to us letting us know how bad we missed it here. And actually, some of you did send us emails this week. Bill was one of them.
Oh, Bill.
He said, "Hello, gentlemen," and Nolan. Dig Dug is not a very... He always does a burn. It's usually on Kenny, but I feel like he had to spread the love this week.
Yeah.
That's great.
Dig Dug is not a very complex game, but in my mind, it's in the same vein as things like Centipede and Space Invaders, because when I was young, those were the games I would play in the arcade. Dig Dug certainly ate its fair share of my parents' quarters back in the day, and going back and playing it again this week, it was a little odd to see how simple the game really was. Overall, the game was not very challenging or even that fun, but I do think it's worth playing, even for 20 minutes if you've never tried it before. I'm crossing my fingers for the randomizer to pick something good this week. Dig Dug is a far fall from Final Fantasy VII.
That's completely different.
We definitely swung the pendulum in terms of complexity and
we
time.
Didn't.
But that's some of the fun of our take on retro games, is it takes such a huge chunk of time that we really get a huge cross-section of gaming history, and it's a great adventure. So thanks, Bill, for your thoughts.
Yeah, and he seems like he kind of agrees with you, Nolan, that even if you just sit down and play it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like it's worth doing so you can have the experience of Dig Dug.
Yeah.
Zion emailed us and he said, some may say this is not a good game. Some may say this is a hard game. But for me, this was a special game. I, of course, played it as a teen in the arcade and I dumped a lot of quarters into the machine, but this game goes deeper for me. I played it on Game Boy several times and started to recognize the patterns. I got so good that I could destroy almost all the creatures with one rock. The game became an obsession for me while I went through hard times. I guess that's why it means so much to me. It might not be a Final Fantasy VII or a Zelda, but it's one of my top favorites for the games of that era. Hope it gets New Game Plus status, but with what I have heard in Discord this week, I doubt it. P.S. Zelda Breath of the Wild is amazing. Thanks to all three of you for what you're doing in this gaming podcast.
Oh my goodness. That hurt for rubbing it in on Breath of the Wild gameplay, and we'll catch up with you someday in real games.
Yeah.
But neat to have that relation of a game and a memory and what it did, and that's so much what games are for people, and so neat to have that nostalgia bomb a little bit. And sorry we couldn't quite muster up the passion for the game to give it New Game Plus, but love that story. And gotta mention, since he brought it up, Discord is a great way to connect with us throughout the week. If you are a listener and want a little bit more personal interaction as opposed to just listening to the cast, or viewing it rather, or sending us in an email or connecting with us on some kind of social media, we'd love to have you guys join us in our Discord channel. Talk to some other people that also view this podcast and connect with them, and it's a great way to give us some direct feedback, and we'd love to have any of you join us that would like to.
I also want to point out, I think Zion told us he got past level 100 in this game.
That's what he said.
It's nuts.
He probably means it.
Probably.
Yeah, sounds like it. Like when you play a game like that where it becomes your jam and you go hard at it.
That's very impressive.
That's wild.
That is. All right, finally, we heard back from Dallas this week. He emailed us. Yeah, he said, hey guys, hope you're doing well. I actually got to play this game on a cabinet in an arcade at the Retro Video Game Museum here in Frisco.
That's super fun.
It's a pretty fun game, and it's super easy to play. Maybe too easy. I got to level 10 on one token, but then I got bored and just let my character die so that I could move on and play Donkey Kong. I feel like it is a very easy game that anyone can play, but I wouldn't give it New Game Plus.
Fair enough. Oh, and he played it on the cabinet, too.
He played it on the cabinet. He found it easier than we find it, but...
Played it on a cabinet in the middle of a place where there was lots of other competitive video games of that same era. And so it literally was apples to apples in terms of his time and resource investment.
But still didn't give it his vote, which means he was looking around the arcade and saying, I want to play this game instead, or this game's better, which that happens, Yeah. If you've got your Steam library up and you can play Dig Dug or you can play Final Fantasy VII, it's going to be hard, like Antonin, to not pick Final
load
Fantasy
up
VII.
Civilization 6.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw you on there, sneaky.
So those are our viewers that have contacted us this week. As always, we love to hear from you as you play the game with us. Let us know your thoughts, your experiences. We love to include your email as a part of our podcast episode each and every week. But now, guys, it's time to select a new game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days. Are you ready to find out what that is?
I'm never ready, but go ahead.
All right. I'm starting the randomizer now.
I hate that moment of time where you know what's popped up and you haven't told us yet. I feel like it gives you so much power.
It does.
And one of these days, I'm going to just take it from you. The week you weren't here, I felt like...
So much power.
And it also took you 20 minutes to pull up the game and the information about the game.
Yeah, I'm bad at it. I'll give you that Dustin's better, but...
But also in our Twitch chat, which this would be a perfect time, Zion was talking, and he said he even sent a picture of level 85. I didn't get that picture. Is that in Discord?
I'll need to check it out.
That's incredible. I would love to see it because that's got to be that's an art. Like to be able to do it.
That takes a lot of time too.
To recognize the levels.
It might not. I mean, like it'll take time, obviously, but
absolutely.
But he could probably clear stages. Hard. He could probably clear stages in a minute, or
He should speedrun
it. Wait, there's no end. Oh no, there is. It's like 2:35.
It gets to like an unplayable screen or something. Yeah.
Yeah, a kill screen is what they called it, or whatever.
Yeah, like so many arcades, it just ends.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to the cast. And the game is a strategy video game developed and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo 64 in 1999. It came to North America in 2000, and the game has to do with little pocket monsters battling one another. It's called Pokemon Stadium.
I'm kind of excited to play a Pokemon game. I don't know if this is the one I would have picked, but have some
Oh, yes,
kind of
it
fun
would.
I'm super excited.
memories of this game, and it'll be a fun one.
It's a better Monster Rancher.
Yes. Whoa. Maybe better Monster Rancher, not better Monster Rancher 2, right, Kenny?
Oh gosh, y'all didn't give a New Game
Absolutely.
Plus.
All night long.
I
baby.
did.
Kenny didn't.
That little evil.
Curse.
I know.
Anyways,
Redacted.
so we are playing Pokemon Stadium. Kenny, you've never played it before?
I have watched it played. I haven't played it myself, but this one made appearances
excited.
in my childhood.
I'm excited for you to play it then because I think it will be a surprising experience for you. Nolan, you've played it?
Yeah, of course I've played it,
Okay.
and it's the best.
Okay, yeah. It's a game that we owned. It's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely play Pokemon Stadium with us this week. As Kenny mentioned earlier, hop in our Discord channel with us. You can find those links on our social media, on our website, ngppodcast.com. We do have social media at Facebook and Twitter. That's at NGP Podcast. You can listen to us directly on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Music, any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure that on those you are subscribed so that you can be the first to listen to new NGP episodes that come out every Monday. And then do check out our Patreon for behind the scenes extra bonus content at various levels of support. That's patreon.com/NGP podcast. One of those that I'd like to highlight this week is just a raw and unedited episode each and every Saturday. Within minutes of the completion of our recording, we upload that raw, terrible audio with all the nose breathing, with all the coughs, with all
Absolutely.
the talking over each other.
All the banter, none of the editing.
No. So what you hear on a regular basis from your podcast provider is a crisp, edited, audio boosting episode. And what are a few people hear on Saturdays before anybody else is a
Us
rough,
getting mad
fun-
at Kenny for technical difficulties.
Us getting sidetracked,
Yeah.
sipping
So-
our coffee.
Make sure to visit us on Patreon at patreon.com/NGP podcast.
Thank you, Bradley Zion, for supporting us. They are our producers for every episode and help us do the show, help us to make it better, and hopefully in the future we'll make it even more quality. So thank you guys for your support. We love you.
Join us next week as we play Pokemon Stadium. Until then, I'm still Dustin.
I'm excited for the game this week.
And I'm Nolan.
Nolan's always so into this name change here at the
He
end.
gets so angry when I don't say my name at the end.
And-
You rolled your eyes so hard that a state and a half away, I feel like I felt like vibrations in the
Good.
ground.
That's what I meant to do.
And this, my friends, has been another episode of New Game Plus.
Bye, stream.